Medicare Extra is very much like Pete Stark's AmeriCare proposal from many years ago, which I'm sure very few people are familiar with, but which has maintained a kind of cult following among certain single payer wonks over the years. And the way that AmeriCare and Medicare Extra works, the idea is if we want to get everyone onto Medicare, we got to transition from where we are to there. And so how do we do that? And the idea is, okay, so let's look at our system right now. We got a lot of people are already on Medicare. Okay, cool. They're on board. Maybe we'll improve their benefits some. We got people on Medicaid. Let's just switch the Medicaid people over to Medicare. That's an easy move. They're already on public insurance, not too hard. Then we got these people who are on these other public programs like the VA or Indian Health Service or TRICARE. For those people, not very many people. A lot of them, they like their stuff. The VA people, the troops, they love VA. The Native Americans, they like the Indian Health Service. They really like that stuff. It's already public. And in fact, even the hospitals are often public. So we'll just leave that how it is. But then comes the difficult question, which is we got 150 million people on employer insurance. We got another 12 million or so who have this individual insurance through the Obamacare exchanges. How are we going to get them onto Medicare? And the Medicare Extra answer and the AmeriCare answer is let's create a public option that goes into the employer market and goes into the individual market, and let's just get everyone to switch over. We can dominate those markets. Medicare is way more efficient than any private insurer. We've got a lot of power since it's the state behind it, where we can really coax almost everyone to switch over to Medicare because it's going to be cheaper, it's going to be easier, it's going to be great. And that's the basic idea behind Medicare Extra is people who are already on a public program, let's switch them over onto Medicare, this new Medicare plan. And people who are on a private program, let's basically allow them to choose to switch over to Medicare Extra, a no-brainer choice that almost anyone's going to make because the premiums are going to be way lower, the service is going to be better, and the government can subsidize the price of the premiums as much as it wants and basically get everyone switched over like that.
So from the outset, it looks like, a good proposal from the Center of American Progress.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a positive proposal. There are details that need to be hammered out or improved somewhat, but this is if people who listen to the show know Tim Faust, this is similar to some of the stuff he's proposed. Mike Congsel at the Roosevelt Institute has proposed something like this. John Walker, whose piece we talked about earlier, who at PPP, the guy who wrote the second lowest cost sewer plan piece, that guy, he proposes a plan like this. So it's very much in the single payer mainstream and is not really that dissimilar from the kind of, purist single payer schemes. The only way it differs is that it transitions people through this sort of public option mechanism as opposed to transitioning them through, say, phasing them in by age, which is what Sanders proposes, where like in year one, everyone over 55 is on Medicare. In year two, everyone over 45, and so on. That's sort of how they phase it in. This one phases it in through a different mechanism, but it's all leading to the same eventual outcome.
Right. And just to sort of give everyone who may not be familiar with the Center of American Progress an idea of just how big of a move, I guess, this is to show people where this is really all going. Who exactly is the Center of American Progress, Matt?
Yeah, so the Center for American Progress is I would say, most powerful liberal think tank in D.C. Annual budgets, last time I checked, on their 501c3 alone was $40 million. And they have a 501c4 as well that they don't report the revenue for. It was the Clinton think tank. It was the bench for Clinton while we were waiting for Clinton to run in 2016. Basically, everyone who was going to serve in her administration sat at CAP and twiddled their thumbs waiting. And it's sort of the core of the liberal establishment in DC, and so to get them to this point when that side of things was saying single payer will never happen and all that kind of stuff is a big move.
Right. They went from pie in the sky to maybe we can eat that pie.
Yeah, maybe we can do this. And what's funny is I remember during the primaries, there wasn't a lot of support. There wasn't a lot of intellectual support behind single payer. Like no think tanks had put out plans for single payer. And part of the reason why I wanted to People's Policy Project. But, I would say during the primaries to podcast, like I was on Slate's Gab Fest and they really pushed me on this. And I would talk to other journalists because I was a Bernie guy and they would push me on this. And I would say, to them every time, the reason the proposals don't exist is not because it's a bad idea. It's just because the institutions that have all the money in DC to actually fund this kind of stuff, because it is very expensive to put together these proposals and do the modeling and all that, they just won't do it. That's the only problem we have. They could do it. If CAP wanted to, they could turn around tomorrow and in 2 months have a totally reasonable, viable single-payer plan. I've tried to hit that over and over again. And I'm sure, I was met with all sorts of eye rolling and okay, yeah. And yet, here we are.
Right. And there was something you kept pointing out to on Twitter, I remember, about this plan. One of their, again, not to, it's a good move from them. And like you mentioned, there's many people who are respected in this field who have put forth similar plans. But you kept bringing up this specific, line that they said about people choosing their company's health insurance. Yeah.
So one of the interesting things is the way the liberal pundits have the consensus position among liberal pundits about why single payer is bad and can't work has become that you're forcing people off their employer health care. That's the thing over and over again. I have a great post
right. That was it. Yes. Right.
On People's Policy Project where I show Jonathan Chait says it. Paul Krugman says it. I've got, 5 or 6 block quotes, and it's always done in 2 or 3 sentences. There's no elaboration. There's no, they just everyone has agreed. The hive mind of the liberal pundit sphere has agreed that that's the main problem with single payers, that you're forcing people off their employer health care. Now, the secret with all liberal pundits, and really pundits in general, is they get their cues from other people. Very few of them are independent thinkers. That's why they all end up converging around the same ideas, the same talking points, which tend to come out of campaigns and consulting shops and whatever. But that's where they've gone. That's how they decided to say, nope, I can't have single payer. So what was interesting when this plan came out from CAP, Medicare Extra, was to see how do they deal with the fact that this is a single-payer plan that is going to force people off their employer care. And the way that they dealt with it, or at least the way David Leonhardt at the New York Times dealt with it, was to say, no, this plan doesn't force people off their employer care. That's what makes it special. That's what makes it unique. That's what makes it different from all these other single-payer plans. And if you're kind of cynical like me, you're like, of course David Leonhardt reached this conclusion. Because 1, he doesn't like the left and its single-payer positions. 2, he does like CAP and liberal establishment places. And so 3, he's going to find some way to round that circle and say that CAP's plan doesn't force people off of insurers. And so, yay, now single-payer is good. And the left, they were still wrong all along, but we fixed their problems. And what I was pointing out on Twitter and pointing out on the post that I wrote about this at People's Policy Project is that this is just not true. That what's going to happen under Medicare Extra is that employers are going to go out and decide, you know what, instead of providing Blue Cross and Blue Shield or Aetna, I'm just going to provide Medicare Extra. I'm allowed to do that under this new scheme. I'm just going to provide that to my employees, and I'm going to force them to switch on to it. That's how it's going to work. That's how it's supposed to work, is that employers will force you over to Medicare Extra. That's going to be their new insurance offering. And liberal pundits they're just ignoring this. And in some ways it's kind of like, okay, whatever it takes. If this is how, you got to save face going forward, is to be like, no, I was right all along. Single payer is bad because it forces people off of employer care. But this one, you see, it doesn't. If that's what it takes, then okay. But it's kind of absurd to have spent, years arguing this point, and then the second a liberal establishment think tank endorses the idea, for them to just kind of wave their hands and pretend like that is not a problem anymore.
Right. It's up there with, like the people who like their health insurance. Like, who are these people? Who are these people who have some sort of emotional attachment to their health insurance? First of all, I know nobody who likes their health insurance. And second of all, even to go further, this whole if you like your doctor thing that the right loves to harp on, I would say 99.9% of the people I know don't even like their doctor. I mean,
well, right. Well, no, I think you make it really. They try to play this game where they talk about people like their healthcare, but healthcare is not the same thing as insurance, right? Like,
right.
I like my doctor or the local hospital I go to. I personally don't care one way or another. But you might like that. But that's not the same thing as Aetna, Blue Cross Blue Shield. They're not the doctors. They just are basically an unnecessary middleman. No one cares about that. I love the place I send money to, who then sends money to the doctor. Like, well, I don't care. It's pointless. But then also the other point that I've been trying to make on this over and over again is that if you like your health care or you like your health insurance right now, you don't get to keep it. You lose it all the time.
Right.
People in a great study from the Bureau of Labor Statistics showed that between the age of 18 and 50, a normal worker, an average worker, has 11 jobs. So, yeah, you've lost your health care probably 11 times if you got it from your employer by the age of 50.
And that doesn't even account for how many times, and this happened to me, employers in the middle of you working there just change their health insurance company.
Right, at the same employer. So you lose it when you lose your job or when you quit or go to another job. You'll lose it if your employer that year is like, oh, I found a cheaper plan. Everyone's got to be on this new plan. You lose it all the time. And so the idea that under the current scheme, they've just been having their health care forever. It's like an heirloom. It's just been in their family for decades and decades. No one's like that. People are bouncing around insurers all the time.